Hi there, Aria Juliet. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. I'll be honest, I'm a little bit grumpy today, a little bit frustrated, but excited to have this time to sit down and talk and kind of work through some thoughts. How are
Yeah,
you?
maybe that'll help. I went through my grumpy stuff a few days ago,
Good.
and actually spent 2 or 3 days feeling kind of. Kelly Rose, my daughter, would say I was low energy.
Mm.
Uh, I guess that's a more polite way of saying just feeling down. Well, I'm good today. I'm
Good.
good. Happy to be back on the air with you here today, and happy the session's over, but not really. I wish they were going, finishing up the business that needs to be done.
Yeah,
Uh,
I saw it's your anniversary. Happy anniversary.
well, thank you. 46 years Claudette and I have been married. And if people want to read about it, I posted this on Facebook. I'm a writer. And so I wrote a column about 700 words, 750 words about how Claudette and I met. And you've heard the story a zillion times. I was a
Yes.
pedicab driver in Waikiki, and she was getting off the bus. So I wrote this story about how we met and how our life progressed over the 46 years. And the feedback I've gotten from the community is just incredible. People want to see it, they can go to Facebook or go to my garyhooser.blog and scroll down. They have to scroll down the page to see that because it was posted last week or something. But Facebook, yeah. And I got some pictures on there when 46 years ago when I was younger. But it was good. It makes you think about life when you reflect back on stuff like that. Thank you for asking.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So, what's the big news of the day?
Well, the big news of the day is we should disclose that no one's paying us. We're doing this as volunteers, and we do this for compliance reasons. The Campaign Spending Commission, Ethics Commission. If you get paid, you have to disclose and file forms. We're doing this as volunteers, and because we love it. And I don't work for anyone. I don't. I'm totally retired, and I'm a volunteer. And if I talk about candidates or talk about issues, it's just Gary Hooser talking. Even though I love the people at HAPA and the various organizations, and a lot of people think I'm still uh, president of the board there, and still driving that train. But I haven't driven the train in a long time. For 10 years, you and I started it, and for 10 years I was board president. But I stepped down to let younger people like yourself step up.
Thank you. I do work for HAPA. I work for Hawaii Alliance for Progressive Action. I am a paid lobbyist for HAPA, but session is over right now. So I think that is totally done with. I'm allowed to donate to candidates again. But I'm here in my own validity, just volunteer, like to talk about this stuff. I love politics. I love Democratic Party. I love campaigns. I do this stuff for fun, but I also am very privileged to get paid to do it as well. So this is just an extra bonus time that we get to spend together and work
Yeah,
out.
you and I go way back. I mean, way back to when you were probably still in school. And we worked on Bill 2491 together on the Kauai, the most epic journey I've ever been on. And we started HAPA together. You were one of the founding board members, right?
Yes. Yep.
And then the Kuleana Academy came out of a conversation you and I had. And yeah, so I count on you, Aria, right now, believe it or not. I'll say, people will call me, what would Gary do? But they don't know I'm calling Aria and say, well, what's Aria do? What's Aria think? What's your feelings? And
It's
so,
kind of funny. Recently, someone asked me like, "How did you get into this stuff?" And aren't you scared? I don't remember what they were talking about. Probably in the context of Citizens United and taking on big corporations. I was like, well, not really, because the first like political action that I was into, I was sleeping on the sidewalk, getting ready to testify at my county council against Dow Chemical and DuPont Pioneer and Syngenta for poisoning the west side of Kauai and asking for basic protections like, hey, can you just let us know when you're going to be spraying these pesticides? Maybe give us a 100 feet buffer zone. um, little basic things. So
Right.
I'm not scared at all. And I've always loved radical candidates. The first political campaign I ever worked on was Dustin Barca for mayor. And to this day, I am so grateful for that experience, and I love that guy. And I would support him again if he wanted to
Yeah.
get back into politics.
You and I and Dustin Barca and Fern Holland and a list of 1,000 or more people, we challenged the largest chemical companies in the world. Syngenta, you mentioned Dow Chemical. And I guess it all happened too fast to be scared, or we didn't even think about being scared. But these were literally the largest chemical companies in the world who are in our backyard, you know, poisoning our community. And I don't use that word lightly. Today, most of them are gone. Their footprint has shrunk 75% or so. Thank goodness. We took them on and we won. They took us to court. They won. We took them to the state legislature. We won. Kind of. But, banned chlorpyrifos, put in some basic protections, and we're still fighting that again. And I think just we'll talk about that for a second. That issue took so much energy, and then it peaked. And I think it's time that we start paying more attention to that. I know Councilmember Fern Holland has had a lot of energy she's putting into the legislature on that, food justice, and yourself too. And the state legislature has let us down repeatedly over and over again. They passed this basic disclosure, basic buffer zone, and banning chlorpyrifos 5 or 6 years ago now. But since then have not stepped up. And in the coming legislative session, I'd like to roll up our sleeves a little bit collectively as a community and get back. The central Oahu on the North Shore is also kind of a hot spot for the use of these chemicals. Molokai is still there. And these are bad stuff. We could talk hours and hours about that battle, and it makes me think.
While we're on that subject, just to give a recap, I did pull up the policy agenda for pesticide protections for HAPA, just to give people, an idea of like what kinds of things we're asking for, and we're still asking for 11, 12 years later. So increased pesticide buffer zones around schools and parks. We're asking for a half mile around schools and parks that died. Online reporting data, so having the biggest users of this restricted use pesticides to report quarterly within a square mile, so we can really accurately understand the effects that this might have on public health. That did not pass, that died. Banning T-Lone. This is a carcinogen drift-prone fumigant. It's used heavily in Hawaii, only by Dole Plantation. All other countries that use this for pineapple don't use it anymore. So it's banned everywhere else, and we're asking them to ban it here in Hawaii, and that died as well. That was introduced by Majority Leader Sean Quinlan, actually, and it passed over to the Senate, and unfortunately died in the Senate. Senator Rhodes, Senator Gabbard voted for it, but Senator DeCoit, Senator Richards, and Senator Awa voted against it. So that was really unfortunate that died. And, the audacity of these people.
Tell me again who voted against it. I want to be.
Senator Richards.
And we're from the Big Island.
Senator DeCoit.
Where's DeCoit from?
Molokai, East Maui. And Senator Awa.
Okay.
Who is, I believe, Dole is in his district, or is adjacent to his district. And it's the audacity that these people have. This was during Kona low storms. The dam was an immediate failure. Like, it was about to fail. And this guy that was representing Dole is testifying at the legislature, saying that this was going to put him out of business because they don't have another use, and they didn't want to explore any other uses. They wanted to continue using this poison.
And it's banned in other places, other countries?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the audacity to tell us they can't do it when other places have made it work. Uh,
Yeah. So those are the kinds of protections that HOPA's been fighting for years and years and years. And it's such a, it's so hard to continually see this legislation continue to fail. But we do see like incremental changes every year that it gets passed through from the House to the Senate. Sometimes that doesn't really happen, or sometimes they don't even get hearings in the House Ag Committee for some of these things. So those little small wins are hard to celebrate, but you do have to do that. Look into
we
that kind
have
of
to
stuff.
do that. We have to celebrate the incremental wins, but I'm sick and tired of not getting the big ones. Well, we got a big one or two maybe, but we need to do so much better. And the legislature, I served there for 8 years in the Senate, and I know how it works, but they could do so much better. To be rushed and say we run out of time when you're dealing with poisons, right? These poisons that are harming people, and all the other needs, whether it's a houseless or whether it's early education or whether it's climate change. To say we ran out of time and we have to wait till next year, give me a break. The planet's running out of time. People are running out of time. And it's time for our legislature and our governor, who deserves to be put on the spot here too, to consider a year-round session. If not every year, do it now. Just stay there another 3 weeks, finish up some of this business, and change. And they can change people's lives tangibly, but they don't. And I don't know. It's frustrating that a majority doesn't feel the same urgency that you and I feel. The governor could extend the session with the stroke of a pen. The legislature takes 2/3, I think, vote on each side.
Yeah. Yeah. Once again, this is my second year working with HOPA as a lobbyist at the legislature, and just the pace of it is just impossible for a team. Our team, we try to do our best, and we have an incredible communications team. We have 2 full-time, staff members on for comms, lobbyists part-time, paid to be there, paid to pay attention, interns, at least 2 or 3 different interns paying attention, and it's really, really hard. And for someone that's getting paid to do it, so think about people that are not, that are just interested in this kind of stuff. It's impossible.
Yeah, yeah.
And the pacing is it's just too much, and they're trying to cram in too much stuff, too little time. They're constantly running down the clock to the very last minute. But let's talk about SB 2471, because that was something that was passed.
Yeah. Before we get there, let me just squeeze in a little bit, because it's so hectic. As a legislator, I remember looking at bills and barely reading them, or not reading them at all, reading a summary, reading the testimony summary. And so it's even more important for people on the street, people like you and I, people, the advocates, to stay on it, because we're the ones raising the red flags. So there's good legislators, but if there aren't any red flags raised, they may just let the thing go by. So it's all the more important for us to stay involved. And Senate Bill 2491, is that the bill number?
2471.
In some ways reminds me of the pesticide GMO bill, because a lot of people told us and warned us it was legally uncharted territory. We had good lawyers, but we weren't sure. We were threatened with court. We lost in court, but we went on and won again later. But you can't let the fear of because there's no settled law. It hasn't been settled yet. And so we're fighting the good fight. And hats off to you, Aria Juliet, again. You were one of the key leaders on this, getting the word out. There was a handful, too many to list, but I don't mind giving you the shout out on behalf of all the rest of them.
Thanks. Yeah, it definitely, so for anyone that doesn't really know or understand what this law does, is essentially stating that state of Hawaii has the authority to define what artificial persons, that is LLCs, incorporated unions, nonprofit organizations, businesses, corporations can and cannot do. So they're defining that business incorporations, unions, nonprofits, etc., cannot spend money from their corporate bank accounts to influence or spend money on elections. So they're shutting off the corporate bank account. So you cannot write a check from Charter Communications to a corporate campaign anymore. That's done. Not allowed to cash the
And
check.
before this, the Supreme Court, the Citizens United case, said that corporations were just like people, right? And they could donate money and spend as much money as they wanted. But
Yes.
this law was passed to say, no, the state of Hawaii controls what corporations can do in the state of Hawaii. And we're saying they cannot do that anymore. And we're the first state to
And
do
just
that.
Yeah, and just to be clear, there's a lot of confusion. It is kind of confusing. This bill was introduced to me and a couple other advocates in January. They kind of told us what they were trying to do, and it went over my head a little bit, and it kind of seemed like I don't think that's going to get traction. Cool idea, but it kind of seems like it's not. But then it just gained momentum. More people read into it like, no, this is really good. Shout out to Senator Rhodes. Shout out to Senator Keokulole, who like really pushed for it. And they're the ones that are responsible, because once it passed over from the Senate to the House, then it's like, wow, okay, this is really interesting. And then once it passed Rep. Matayoshi and then Rep. Tarnas is like, wow, okay, this is really crazy. So that's probably why some people hadn't really heard of it until after it passed the House. That's when HAPA started really ramping up communications, because we saw that, okay, this really actually has potential. It wasn't on our top priority. It was on our priorities, but not our top priorities. But just to be completely clear for people who might not understand, that this doesn't end political PACs, or it doesn't end super PACs in Hawaii. So super PACs and PACs still have a right to exist. However, the checks cannot come from the corporations. So Charter Communications can have a PAC or a super PAC if they wanted to, but they have to get their donations from individuals. So right now, like the labor unions have political organizations, and they can write checks from their corporate bank account. It's a corporate bank account, even though it's a nonprofit. So they can't write checks to that PAC anymore. They have to have their individual members donate directly to the PAC. So when you look up the PAC spending report, all of the donations will come from individual members. Same with the super PAC. So this does not, stop Elon Musk or Larry Ellison or whatever have you from spending millions of dollars to influence our elections, because that is still protected First Amendment speech, but their Tesla Corp cannot write the check.
So their name will be on the donation. And they're limited to the same limits in terms of regular campaign donations. They can still donate to super PACs unlimited, I guess, right
Yes.
now. Even though it's going to go through court, granted, and the effective date is not till next year, February, is that right?
They changed it to July 2027. Okay. So if there is any unintended consequences or anything like that come up, they can address it in the next session. I'm pretty sure that the unions are going to ask them to do some more definition, carve out, or what have you, to kind of solidify what they can do. Political parties as well. That's another thing that wasn't really expressed or thought out a lot, is like how this is going to affect political parties. They do more than just spend money on elections. They do administrative work, they do voter education, they do, functionality stuff. Right. So trying to figure out how that factors into it. But overall, it's the tension is where we need to be going. We don't want corporations buying out our political parties. We do not want, the corporate backers from unions to buy out our political parties or our unions themselves. And so this is like a good way to go and try it out.
It's groundbreaking stuff. And credit needs to go all around. Thank the governor for signing it. He wasn't exactly dancing on the table when he signed it. He didn't issue a press release or conference. I mean, he didn't have a press conference and blow his horn.
Hashtag no invite.
Yeah. But he signed it. He could have vetoed it.
He signed it.
This is how democracy works. I'll say it. These bills were introduced and championed by Senator Rhodes initially, because people were calling and nudging and encouraging him to do so. He didn't just go out and find this bill. Uh, People were nudging him. I sent an email myself and said, "Hey, did you see this?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm looking at it. It looks really interesting." And so people doing that uh, cumulatively, and then once it got momentum, it would have been politically impossible to veto this bill, in my opinion, because it was such a big thing. Uh,
Yeah, some more lore about, after it passed out of the House, um, the Senate and the House position, there had been a couple amendments that were made during the process. So the Senate's position and the House position were actually a little bit different. And Senator Rhodes said on his final floor speech that he said he thought that the House and Senate were so far apart that he would have just said, we'll try again next year. But Senator Keokolole saw the writing on the wall. I think he saw the election in November as well, which, okay, we'll take it. But, he saw the political momentum and said, no, let's work on this. And him and Rep. Matayoshi really went to town to figure out how to make this work. And, kudos to Rep. Matayoshi for, he's more, I would say, conservative in terms of taking chances, putting Hawaii at risk for lawsuits or whatever. So he wanted to make sure that Hawaii was protected so that other states' corporations couldn't come into Hawaii and spend money when our corporations couldn't, for example. That's what he was trying to do to protect us, which is why they threw in that thing about the AG being able to overturn it or whatever. So these conversations were happening, all through the week during conference up until they, met at 10 a.m. on Friday, pushed it to 2, pushed it to 3:30, pushed it to 5, pushed it to 5:30.
5:30 in the morning?
PM.
Okay.
The deadline was 6 o'clock, conference. So they met, and I think they regavelled it at 5:50, 5:55, and the vote was called at 6 o'clock. And Matayoshi's like, wait a minute, it's 6. And Senator Kogole was like, nope, we're taking the vote. Good. So good for him.
Yeah, good for him. Mahalo plenty, Senator. And it is an election year, and there's nothing wrong with doing good stuff and hoping you're going to get elected by it. That's that. We should all our legislators should be striving to do good stuff and not operate in fear, but in optimism.
So we have a question. I'd like to know what you think the chances are of the state getting legal help for inevitable challenges.
I would say if the state wants legal help, and I'm hoping the AG will be open to that, there'll be people, good lawyers from across the United States, tripping over themselves to be part of this.
That's what I've heard as well. I've heard there's already people offering, Center for American Progress was one of the partners that helped draft this bill. Tom has done a lot of education around this, so they definitely have resources as well. Montana is doing something similar as a voter initiative in November, and I think North Carolina also, after we passed ours, introduced something similar. So people are paying attention. And this is I think the momentum is there to get tested with many other states as well.
The Center for American Progress, is that the name of the organization?
Yes.
So their reputation is on the line too, so they're going to want to help. And they're the ones, I think, that have done most of the early research on this measure. And so they're going to be doing everything they can. And it's a long process. I mean, it has to get through various layers before it finally gets to the Supreme Court. And so we'll see what happens.
So this was, the biggest and possibly most impactful good government reform that we saw passed. But critics will say
I'll say
didn't go far enough in terms of enacting some other really meaningful and important legislation in terms of good governance. We did see an increase in partial public funding, which we haven't seen one of those since 1995, I think. So that was pretty big. They could have gone a little bit stronger. We had a 4-to-1 match at one point, and they knocked it down to 2-to-1 because of budgeting. But they failed at a lot of other things, like they failed candidate to candidate contributions. They failed completely at passing any reform for the pay to play contractor ban. And I will say that a lot of lawmakers use Citizens United, and the reason why they couldn't enact other reforms because they would be handicapping candidates against dark money. So as long as unlimited corporate dark money was being spent, they didn't want to handicap candidates by not being able to take other kinds of contributions, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what their kind of give and take was. Whether that's true or not, I'm not sure. I think we could have done it all, but that's just me.
I agree. And before we carry this forward, is there any news on the $35,000 in the paper bag?
Not that I've
no,
heard.
I haven't heard it either. The AG supposedly working on this, and there's other subpoenas that have been issued, but there was supposed to be regular press releases, and I haven't seen any news lately. And it was hugely disappointing for me not to see other reforms passed. There was one that Senator Rhodes also introduced. Rep. Kim Koko Yuamoto introduced a version in the House, which I thought was basic and simple and important, was that if an elected person witnesses someone taking a bribe, they have to report it, or it's a crime for not reporting. And that's a basic thing. Instead of looking the other way, if you witness something, you've got to call the FBI. Because instinctively, I know that other people who are working with and around some of these bad apples are aware of it, but just don't want to get in the middle of it. So that would have been a simple reform, wouldn't cost no money at all, wouldn't have affected anyone's election in terms of the money they can raise, and they failed to do that. So we keep keeping it on, keep on.
Yeah, we'll keep it on. We did lose Senator Rhodes. He retired after 20 years in the House and Senate.
He's a good man. I thought he was solid, dependable, honest. I always want people to be more like Bernie Sanders. So he fell a little bit short there, but he was pretty solid in his values, and I wish him all the best in his retirement. I wonder if he could run for lieutenant governor or governor or something. No?
I mean, could if you wanted to. I'd always love to have a couple more choices to choose from.
We do. We don't have any choices, really. I mean, this is not to talk stink about anybody, but if you look at the top of the ticket, can we pivot now for a few minutes to talk about elections? Just
Sure.
Quickly. We don't have any choices. Lieutenant governor, we have Pacific Resource Partnership's choice. Maui Kauai Mayor Derek Kawakami, who's really popular here in Kauai. But there's no one else. Well, there's one other fellow. But I don't know how, if he's running a real campaign. I don't know how solid. I need to check him out. And there's, I guess, a bunch of people pull papers for governor. But again, no, I would argue, credible opposition for those two seats. So we with no choices. But June 2nd is the filing deadline.
Yep, there's still time. People still have choices to both file the papers that they've pulled and pull more and get some signatures.
Yeah. Oh boy, 2471. That was a big one. And again, it wouldn't have happened without grassroots support, keeping it on the radar, keeping it front and center. Those telephone calls, I tell you, it's not like a broken record, but those calls and emails work, and the testimony.
We're getting staff telling us that they've been getting calls, and whether it irritates them or not, I don't really care. But as long as you're being cordial and not be nice to the staff and kind and just, clear with your messaging.
Yeah, polite and professional, clear and to the point. And if people want to call, it's easiest sometimes. And I say call after hours, get voicemail. It's easier.
Yeah.
And it's important to know who your own legislator is, who represents your district, and call them, even if they're not on the committee, even if they're not, the most important person there, call them. Tell them, I live in your district. I appreciate the work you're doing, but this issue is important to me. Get on their radar. It's just so important to make that short call. Another example of that, if I can do a shout out to the people who got involved with the macro issue. This was a bill, the bill number slips my mind right now, but it was a Senate bill and a House bill that provided $1.3 million originally to this state agency whose job it was to provide public relations support, community support for the defense industry. And part of the bill even said to support increased access for kindergarten through 12th grade for job creation. And it's crazy. We're going to pay state money to an agency to access kindergartners and grade schoolers for the defense industry's growth. And it was outraged a lot of people. It generated a whole bunch of phone calls, enough to kill it in the House. And Rep. Bellotti had actually had a version of her own that she'd introduced, but she killed it. There was so many calls. People called again when it got to Ways and Means. It got on the agenda, not on the agenda, but it was raised by members at the committee at Ways and Means. And then he pulled the plug, Chairman Dela Cruz, and they talked about it in private. And then since then, I've heard through the grapevine, through credible sources in both the House and the Senate, that the macro funding, not only did the new funding die, but existing funding was deleted. State funding. This is breaking news. Nobody knows that except for you and me right now and everybody who's listening. But I've heard from two separate sources, House and Senate sources, and I'm trying to confirm it. But there was money appropriated the preceding year for 2 years, and it was deleted from the budget because the community stepped up and made those calls. So mahalo plenty, folks. It really makes a difference to make those calls. So what's next? What else happened? There's so much. There's environmental news. There's
speaking about budget stuff. The budget passed, but they're at a cost. And I'm not super privy on the details, but I know that the solar tax credit was something that got gutted from the state budget this year. And that's there's unintended consequences, not just for future funding, but for projects that are currently happening right now. So much so that I think the environmental community is going to be calling for a special session to address it. They don't want to veto the bill because a lot of work went into passing the budget and preserving the tax cuts and all this other hoopla and stuff. And overall, it's really good, but those solar tax credits were cut out, and that's a really big gut punch to the environmental community. So, do you know anything about that?
Let's put it into context. We have a war over oil right now. We've got the Straits of Hormuz. We've got, bombing. We got the world is at war over oil. And we know that fossil fuels are hugely responsible for climate change and rising sea levels. We know oil is bad. We know it's bad. It's getting more expensive. Why in the hell aren't we putting more energy and bigger tax credits into solar and other renewable energy sources instead of cutting back on this and looking at liquid natural gas? We should be doubling down on solar. And I know tax credits are not forever. Tax credits are intended to spur an industry. Well, this is an industry we need to spur, in my opinion. We need more people putting solar on the rooftops, not fewer people. And so I'm not clear what the governor's thinking or what the legislature was thinking in terms of, uh, trying to save money, cut the budget. And again, I get it. Tax credits, whether it's for the entertainment industry or the solar industry or any industry, are usually used to spur it, to get it going, and then they should go away. But I would say this is a crisis. Climate change is a crisis, and getting off of oil in a global concept is a crisis. And we
Yeah.
count on ships hauling this stuff in. We're more vulnerable than anybody. Uh,
Yeah.
I haven't heard. I've heard what you have. I've seen some stuff in the. I started to say the newspaper, but online about calling for a special session.
Yeah.
If they do a special session, it would make sense to put a few more items in there. I'm not sure what they would want to do.
Yeah.
Um,
Another bill that I was really bummed that personally couldn't do more to support, and bummed that it died very last minute, very last day, was the conveyance tax. In this bill, they did a lot of work to get this bill. This is the bill that, whenever you sell a house, the taxes that get paid on that. And they worked it out so that 94% of home sales in Hawaii were going to get a tax break, that the taxes would be lower for the sales. 94% of all home sales. And they got it down to $4 million or less homes. So any house valued less than $4 million was going to get a 94 a tax deduction. So the taxes would be lowered, and they were going to raise the taxes significantly on luxury home sales. And this was going to give at least $40 million a year to DHHL, who's never had a consistent source of money. Money for affordable housing, money for infrastructure projects. And what I've heard is that the Senate and the House were just in different positions, and that the Senate did not feel comfortable funding DHHL, and they wanted the money to go into the general fund or something. And I think that that's disgraceful, pretty much.
yeah. So everybody selling a house under 4 million would get their taxes reduced,
Yes.
and we'd still raise enough 40 million for DHHL and a bunch of other stuff.
Yes.
Unbelievable. Yeah, it's pretty disgraceful. I mean, there's always a possibility that we don't know everything, but it sounds really, really bad, and I haven't. And if there was some more legitimate reasons, then those folks should put them out on the table so we know.
And what's really frustrating, I think, about conference, so, you go through 4 months of testifying and hearing people, and they do ask you questions in hearings, so you kind of understand where they're thinking. But then they get to conference, and then they meet and they say, okay, we're in different positions. Let's meet tomorrow. So all of the conversations about the negotiations or the differences between the House and Senate happen behind closed doors. The public has no idea what's going on. And the final drafts of these bills, if the conference drafts aren't approved, the public doesn't see the light of day. So we don't really know what the final bill that they landed on was, and we won't ever get to know until they say next year, like, oh yeah, this is what we landed on last year. But they're making these decisions and having these conversations. They're not talking. Sometimes things kind of spill out when they're really frustrated. But for the most part, they gavel in. They say, "We're not here yet. Meet back tomorrow."
Yeah, funny you should bring this up. And if anybody has questions or anybody watching online could plug them into the comments, I guess, right? Is that how it works? So in my blog, garyhooser.blog, I posted just a couple hours ago a piece. Most of the pieces are relatively short, 700 words or so. It's about secret meetings, secret decisions, and about just what you talked about. There's two things that our government, our democracy needs, and that's sunshine and more citizen involvement. And the doing it in secret is not just bad and ugly, It's against the Constitution, in my opinion. I'm not a lawyer. The state constitution says any meeting of a committee, of member or members, or two committees, like a conference committee, that meets for the purpose of making a decision. I almost got to memorize verbatim. Any committee or committees that meets for the purpose of making a decision shall do so in public. So when they're meeting behind closed doors, trying to come to terms with each other, whether it's literally behind closed doors at an office, or whether it's on the phone, or whether it's via Zoom or whatever, when they're talking to each other, coming to a decision, and then that's against the Constitution to do that in secret. Just showing up to announce the decision they already made does not satisfy the constitutional requirement, in my opinion. Again, I'm not a lawyer. So, but fortunately, there are 8 citizen plaintiffs, and that's what I write about. Ocasio versus the House of Representatives. Okay, they took it to court, and on May 27th, and I have the date and the times and the location on my blog piece, garyhooser.blog. They're going before the judge, who hopefully will see the facts for what they are and rule in their favor. And we're encouraging people to show up politely and professionally. Show up and sit in the audience to support these 8 plaintiffs. They're just regular people like you and me. Some of them, we know. Some I met for the first time, and they were part of the good governance caucus or lobby in the beginning of last year's session. The House formed a committee to amend the rules, and then didn't have one single public meeting. The House formed a committee. It told them, we want you to make decisions and recommendations on our rules. And they didn't hold one single public meeting. The public had no opportunity whatsoever. So it's a real egregious example. So that's going before the court. But I encourage people, go to us, self-promoted, go to garyhooser.blog and read about it. And if you could show up on the 27th, please show up. And I'll have to say there's a GoFundMe effort also that I post on that blog. There are legal expenses. We got some great attorneys, Lance Collins, Bianca Isaki, who are doing gangbuster work, but there still are expenses that have to be paid. So please help these folks out. There's 8 of them. Go to garyhooser.blog. It is, and it's the entire process is riddled with these secret meetings. The conference committee is secret. Just whether or not a bill gets heard in the first place is done behind closed doors. The chair gets a list of all these bills. The chair consults with stakeholders, whoever the chair wants to consult with, and decides who wants it. But the public's never part of that process. It's all done in secret.
Yeah. That was one of the rules that we're advocating for to get changed, is the decision of the committees on what bills they hear. And that was something that it was brought up a couple times in the final floor session of the House, because I guess one of the bills that passed had been originally a bill that the Republican minority caucus introduced for years and never got traction. And then finally, when a majority member introduced it, it got momentum and got passed through. And we were really frustrated because we were asking the minority caucus to support us in getting these rules changed. If the progressives and the minority caucus got together, there could be some things that can happen there. But we wanted them to, I think that every single bill has merit, and every single bill has the right to have a decision be made by the committee it's referred to, whether it has merit or not. So what we were just asking is to have the committee as a whole vote up or down the slate of bills that they want to hear. And if there's one that a committee member says, like, no, I want to hear this, that should have a separate vote as well. It's simple Robert's Rules of Order, right, in my opinion.
No, and that's a simple, easy way to do it. It could even be done just as long as the votes are taken in writing. It doesn't have to be a arduous process. It could be just straightforward. I want to Go
thought.
ahead.
I just want to say, going back to the $35,000 and the bribery with Kalani English and Ty Cullen, this is what they went to jail for. They went to jail for taking bribes for hearing and killing or not hearing bills. We don't know exactly what bills they did introduce and not hear or heard and kill or whatever, but they were committee chairs or vice chairs of finance, and there was some kind of deal made because committee chairs have unilateral power to hear or kill bills, and that is what they took bribes for to do. And the legislature has not addressed that and not addressed that power that they have.
They have unilateral power to do it behind closed doors in secret, too. And I would argue the unilateral power is granted to them by their majority. And so we need more people. We have a few. Representative Iwamoto again, she'll raise her hand and say, I've got some questions on this and I can't support it. And there's a few others. We need more people to raise their hand and say, I've got a question about this, or and then other people behind them to get momentum instead of everyone being afraid and letting that unilateral power, challenge the chair. Even if you do it in caucus or behind closed doors, do it in a nice and polite way. Say this bill's important to me, and have other of your colleagues raise their hand and say, yeah, let's do this. But unfortunately, too many are quiet. I'd like to see a little more Nani Brown energy. I give a shout out to Nani Brown running for the state senate. I want to see that vibrance and that power and that energy in candidates as we move forward. I think there's quite a few good candidates stepping up.
Yep. Let's give a little bit of shout out. Representative Iwamoto is having her fundraiser this weekend. She has pledged to only take $100 per person this legislative cycle, kind of as an experiment. And she's having a fundraiser on Saturday, May 23rd, at Arts and Letters in Nu'uanu, with the after party at Scarlet Honolulu. And she's teaming up with a couple other candidates to host their fundraiser as well. So Jordan Nakamura, who's running for State Senate District 13, to take Senator Rhodes' seat. He's part of the fundraiser. Nadia Alves, who's running for the seat for House District 28 in Chinatown. She's part of the fundraiser. And Janelle Fujinaka running for House District 26. Open seat being vacated by Representative Albalati. So if you're in town and you want to support, please check it out. It's going to be a really fun event. It's nice to see her, kind of supporting new up-and-coming candidates running for these open seats, see more collaboration happening. So, yeah, hope to see you there if you can make it.
So if they want to find out more about this, they just probably go to Representative. Okay. I have a disclosure. I love Nadia Alves. I think she would make a great representative. I've worked with her and known her for several years now, and just wish I lived in the district so I could go vote for her. She's great. I've talked to some of the others on the phone, but I've known and worked with Nadia personally and directly for a couple of years now, and I'm totally impressed. Hawaii as a state would be fortunate to have somebody of her caliber serving. I wish I could go. I'm over here on Kauai now, one of the most beautiful spots on the planet. But I actually looked up the airfare. It was $275 to fly over and back. And I do go over. I'm going over for the court date. And I usually have other meetings during the course of my trip. But I don't normally go over on Saturdays, and in the evenings it's hard. But so I'm going to wish everybody well, and I encourage people to go. If you're into politics, definitely go. because you're going to see a lot of people there and get a network and support Representative Iwamoto and the other candidates. And if you're not so into it, go. It'll be fun. You'll get to meet the candidates up close and personal and stand and chat with them. And it'll be fun. The food will be good. The company's better. And you'll see Ari there, right?
Yeah, I'll be there. Fundraising is so hard. These poor candidates, they are just begging for money.
Yeah.
But it's expensive. A mailer is like $5,000, one mailer. And you need at least 3 to be, competitive in this. Your voter data, at least $1,000. All your text messages, your walking pieces, like all of that costs money. And if we want to get corporate money out of politics, until we can get publicly funded elections, we need to get our own money into politics.
That's right. So 5,000 a mailer, 3 at the very minimum, or 4, you're saying?
It depends on your district.
But and then you have
people like Nadia who can't door knock every single door because they have high rises. They need to get mailers.
So you have yard signs and small dollar donations add up. So 100 people giving $100. $100 is a lot of money. $100, it's a lot of money. At the same time, we can bite the bullet and give $100, in my opinion. Even $20, $50. But we need the volume. We need 100 people. We need 500 people, and people from across the state. So even if you don't live in Nadia Alves' district, for example, or in Jordan's district, or in these districts where the good candidates are running, even if you don't live there, you will benefit from their election. So chip in, dig deep, and send them a little money, because it takes money to win, and they're doing the heavy lifting. There's only 60 days, right? 2 months.
2 months.
Yeah, end of July. People start voting right now. 2 months from now, and the filing deadline is June 2nd. We're likely to see some new surprises. If we might get some surprises from the AG and a $35,000 paper bag, that might drive some other surprises on June 2nd. I don't know. It's not funny. Okay, I'm laughing and ha ha ha, but this is the future of our state, and there are people living under bridges. There are people that can't get health care. There are people that don't have a place to live. They can't afford a house. There's climate change. There's all kinds of stuff we need help on. We need good people serving in office. And so please, if you're watching today, find a candidate and help them, maybe 2 or 3, and run yourself.
Even do reoccurring donations. If you really can only afford $10 every paycheck, then you can set those reoccurring donations up, and those will definitely add up, and candidates appreciate it.
Yeah. So let me think. I was thinking, we talked about 2471, the Citizens United, talked about macro, talked about the secret meetings. I plugged my blog. People go to GaryHooser.blog, find out when the court case, the Ocasio versus the State House, help them show up at that meeting. I talked about candidates. We covered quite a bit of territory today, and I think we need to talk a little bit about self-care as I'm looking at Aria Castillo. We got to take care of ourselves and our friends. So check in on your friends, folks, because so many of us are working really, really hard. I know people working in the homeless, houseless community who just don't know when to stop, who could feel the pain and see the suffering, and they're out there every day, and we got to stand up with them. And we got to remind them to stop and smell the roses, smell the plumeria, and drink water and get out and go to the beach once in a while. That goes for you, Aria Castillo. It goes for myself. I got to remember how to do that also.
Yeah, I definitely need to get out more, do more walks. Legislative session ended, and then it's straight into campaign season. I'm helping two candidates, like officially working with two candidates this year, and then helping a bunch of others. Just trying to make sure that we have some good choices, make sure people stay compliant,
Right.
make sure people have the tools that they need to, do this, and just give them encouragement, because it's really, really hard. I've seen candidates already, they started door knocking early, and then they get fatigue, and then they gotta, get excited again, and then they get more fatigue, and then it's time to have a fundraiser, and they're just like hoping that people buy their tickets. It's like, you gotta call people and ask to come. You can't just post it on Facebook.
Right.
So
Right. And even
it's hard.
And everyone, in my opinion, everyone watching this show, everybody that works in the environment can afford something. Whether it's a small monetary or they can afford a few minutes of time to volunteer, to go hold signs in the morning, to make phone calls, to sign letters. And one thing, we talk about phone calls and emails during the legislative session. It goes year round, calling your legislator, calling your council members. But I would say take some time today to call people who are doing the work in our community and tell them thank you. If there's one thing, and I'll true confession here, Gary Hooser, I'll get calls from people saying nice things, thanking me for my work, and it's like adding fuel to the fire. It feels good. It's like, it feels good to have people recognize you when you do work, and you want to do more. So call the Aria Castillos of the world, or send them emails, others out working at nonprofits around on every island. Call those candidates and tell them, thank you. Thank you for running. Thank you for doing what you do. And then offer to help and show up for them. Share the stuff on social media. That's another really easy thing to do. Share and like. It drives those algorithms.
Something that just came to mind that I wanted to mention, kind of with party politics and good candidates. Pe'ele Kanekona he's a Green Party candidate running in House District 14, Lahaina. He was endorsed by ILWU.
Oh, great.
Which is a pretty historic, momentous occasion. I think that the ILWU, mostly Democrat, kind of traditionally, most of Hawaii candidates are Democratic candidates, occasionally some Republican candidates, but endorsing a Green Party candidate, I think, is really, really huge, and props to them. They've been doing a lot of work around Bill 9 on Maui to curb the vacation rentals, and Lahaina Strong was really involved with that. Pe'ele is part of that crew, so it's a really good fit. They also endorsed Uncle Bobby.
Okay.
So we're really excited for those endorsements. And
I got a call from Uncle Bobby earlier. I need to return his call. He's a fabulous human being. I'm always lucky to have him. Maui's got some good people. I need to go to Maui. But it's a long way from here. I'd like to go spend the weekend or the day and meet with friends and stay in touch with what's going on. Same in Big Island, Huli Pack. I'll give a shout out to Huli Pack. They're doing good work. One thing that Huli Pack does, they're a small advocacy organization focusing mainly on issues pertaining to Hawaii County, but other statewide stuff too. But they're involved in elections. They help people on the ground. So, but they're actually interviewing candidates and endorsing. A lot of organizations endorse, but they're doing video interviews of candidates and question and answer Q&A, and then they're posting those videos for the whole world to see, which I think is a pretty good service for advocacy group to do. So hats off to Huli Pack. They were really big supporters of the aquarium fishing legislation, and I'm not sure as we sit here what happened to that. It was, for a while, the Big Island was carved in and carved out, and I'll have to report on that next time. But But that's about what I got.
We have the Democratic Party convention
Oh,
coming up next weekend. We were just talking earlier offline. There's a candidate forum happening tomorrow, put on by the caucuses. Um, there's two candidates running for party chair. A party chair, just like any head of the organization, kind of sets the tone, sets the momentum for the next couple of years. And there's Mackay Freitas from Hawaii Island and Tina Marie Evans, also from Hawaii Island. Unfortunately, only Tina Marie is available for the candidate forum tomorrow. Um,
interesting. Interesting. I like you on social media and through various ways we communicate. A lot of people are fond of bashing political parties. Oh, the Democrats aren't worth anything, and the Republicans aren't worth anything, or that kind of thing. I know firsthand, and you do too. The Democratic Party of Hawaii, and Republican Party too, for that matter, are small enough where individuals who want to get involved can make a difference. Whatever island you live in, you can show up at meetings, because sometimes there's only 5 or 6 people, 8 or 10, people to show up at some of these smaller meetings. So a handful of people can make a difference and take our party in the direction, I'm a Democrat, in the direction that we need to go. And that would be Bernie Sanders Democrat for me. People on the planet first, living wage, Medicare for all. And the Green Party, more power to them for hanging in there and stepping up and giving people a choice. And so I think technically or legally, Democrats, members of the party, aren't supposed to support other people of the party. But I will support competition, and think competition is healthy. And when it comes time to vote, I'll vote in the privacy of my voting booth for the best candidate. Hopefully, that'll be a candidate that comes from the party that I support. And I'll do everything I can to do it. So thank you for being part of that. And I encourage people, get involved. It's fun. Talk about
the bar for entry is so low. The people, there are some districts, my District 51, there are a lot of people that participate, that come to the meetings and sign up and stuff, but there's others that really have very few people that come. And unfortunately, one of the reasons why I'm really grumpy right now is because every 2 years we have convention, and every 2 years there's always some kind of issues with credentialing and getting people to be delegates. And people want to become delegates, maybe it's 2 weeks too late, or maybe they filled out the form wrong, or maybe their email went to spam, or what have you. But the hoops that we make people jump through sometimes when they just want to be involved, and we have so few people participating, it really irks me. It really frustrates me that we're so unwelcoming to new people that want to participate.
So
that's why.
Got it. That's why you've been grumpy.
Yes.
Well, this too shall pass. And if more people did go through the hoops, they can change that. They can lock arms with you and a bunch of other people and make the party friendlier, more effective, and more progressive. We talked earlier about self-care, and we talked about going outside, going for a walk. And I'll just speak for myself. Eating right. I changed my diet 3 or 4 years ago and started eating much better and started exercising, walking every day. But as I look into health care, and as you get older, you do this more, okay? But if you look into it, the third leg, this is important, is social interaction. So you can eat right and you can exercise, but you got to get out and interact with other people. And politics, going to Kim Coco's event on Saturday, joining the Democratic Party, getting involved is a way to blend issues that are important to you with that social interaction, to hang out with people who have barbecues and go to the beach and pick up litter and do things that community-based activities. So I really encourage people to get out of the house and interact and join with other people, because that's the way we're going to win. And that's why we're going to stay healthy too, and not be grumpy.
Yeah.
So we're going to do that. We were doing this every week for a while, and the session got in the way. Uh, we're going to, I think, have some guests on in the future. I want to talk about criminal justice reform. Those are we got some really good people working on it, and I want to support them. And we need to have them on again and talk about the overcrowded jails and under-resourced rehabilitation programs and the bail reform. There's so many issues. The same with a houseless, homeless, unsheltered community. Uh, we know we've talked about this in the past. For most people on most islands on any given day, there's no place to sleep that's legal and safe if you don't have a house. There are shelters around, but most of them are full. And if you want to get in them, you've got to sign up. I was told you have to be certified as being homeless. I've kind of found that kind of flabbergasting, but that's what I was told from good sources. And then you got to go on a waiting list. But we need to talk about that and the food justice and the pesticide issue more. So let's drill down into some of these issues moving forward, as well as the campaigns, of course.
Okay, sounds
And if
good.
people watching this can share it on Facebook, or if you're watching it on YouTube, share it, please, because we don't get paid for this, but we want to spread the message. And there's a lot of good information that we put out today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, Aria, Juliet.
Thank you, Gary. Have a good
Okay, I
night.
guess that's